Good afternoon, and welcome to the Dr. Kennedy Podcast. The Dr. Kennedy Podcast is sponsored by the Daniels Foundation for Impact and Development. That's the Daniels Foundation for Impact, Development, and Development. And I'm Dr. Ken Daniels, and the CEO of the foundation. So, folks, I want to welcome you to this afternoon and a exciting podcast for me. Today or tonight, we're going to have Mr. Robert Lester, the former coach of East Orange basketball, my former basketball coach, and someone who mentored me as a young man. And I'll never forget the day he gave me a basketball and asked me to learn how to dribble a little bit better and push my game to a higher level, and led to some great things for me in my life, my career. And we have Mr. Lester talk a little about his background from education. He's a graduate of Central High School. Ironically, it looks like he only played 1 year of basketball there, but was a great rebounder. Went on to Montclair State, had a fantastic basketball career, and then went into teaching and coaching, primarily at East Orange High School, Montclair, and Atlantic City, and really had a very storied career as one of the most winning coaches in Essex County history. Some storied games between East Orange and Barringer, East Orange and Orange, and East Orange and Bloomfield. I'm sure this interview will bring back a lot of interviews for folks. And as I was getting psyched for this interview, I kind of went back and I played one of our favorite songs was that time period. I don't know if you guys can hear this or not, but I put it here first. Here's the my fellow Panthers wrote that song. I hope Mr. Lester will remember it. BT Express. So that was our song we came out on, and it got us pumped and everything. And we had a lot of fun back in the day. Myself, Pitchford, Clyde, Dennis Ross. Before that, looking up to Clay Eugene and some of that storied history. So sit back. Again, we appreciate any support for the foundation. You can go to the website for the foundation, which is daniels-foundation.org. And just appreciate any support just so you guys are listening, you're enjoying the podcast, and hope you guys will come along as we do bigger and better things for years to go on. So on the other side, we'll have Mr. Robert Lester. Appreciate you very much. Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to the Dr. Kennedy Podcast. And guess what, folks? As I was mentioning, we're now on the other side with Mr. Robert Lester. Coach Lester, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Kenny. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful. Got through the holidays, didn't gain too much weight, so that's a blessing. And trying to stay healthy these days, and live a little carefree, just in terms of being stress-free. So living retired now, you probably could tell me a few things about retirement. How's retirement been treating you?
Retirement is great. I'll never forget the day after I retired. When I woke up that morning, I said, I ain't got to go to work. I don't have to worry about being there on time. I don't have to worry about nobody telling me to do this or do that. So, it was great. And, I've been retired since 2003. I took early retirement because of health. Mm-hmm. And I moved to South Carolina. South Carolina in November of 2003. We stayed there about 11 years before we moved to the Atlanta area. And South Carolina is nice and quiet, depending on where you go. We weren't, near the big cities like,
Columbia,
Myrtle Beach, or, on the coast. So it was nice and quiet. We were closer to Asheville.
Okay, yeah.
But the bad thing about South Carolina, the thing we really didn't like, wasn't a damn thing to do then. Excuse my language. Wasn't nothing to do down there, They don't have any professional teams. You know about Clemson in South Carolina, but basically that's it. And people really put everything into those two schools. Yeah. They divided families. Some members of the family were South Carolina, some members of the family were Clemson. And
you gonna tell me you don't own a fishing pole? I'm about to teach you how to fish.
I didn't fish. I didn't golf. I did a lot of reading, because I had a lot of reading to make up for. I had so many books, man. I had to catch up on. But no, I didn't golf, and I didn't do any fishing. Although we weren't near any water, I think we were like 4 hours away from the coast. Gotcha. Where you have all those, resort areas, like I said, Myrtle Beach, and things like that. So, fishing never did interest me. This is a side thing, but I'll never forget when I was at East Orange. some friends of mine, Mr. Spivey, you probably remember these names,
Yeah,
Mr.
Mr. Scott.
Spivey.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Yeah, some of his friends, they took me out on a boat to go fishing for a half day. Thank goodness it was only for a half day. Because when we went out there, as long as we were going out to the middle of the water, I was okay. Once the boat stopped and started rocking, I was sick as a dog.
You know.
So all my fishing from then on in was from the shore.
Let me ask you a question, since I kind of just, off the cuff question, nothing. So, you graduate from Central, and kind of do my background reading. You only played 1 year of high school basketball.
1 year, yeah.
That just blew my mind. I said, you this talent, and so what went on that you only played 1 year of high school basketball?
Well, actually, back then, we didn't have middle schools. We went to a grammar school, grades 1 through 8, and then we went to a junior high school.
Yeah.
1 year, our 9th grade year was at a junior high school. So mine was split between 2 schools, Robert Street, which is on one side of town, and then 7th Avenue, which is on closer to my area. I switched here the second half of the year. And so my 9th grade actually wasn't spent at Central. So I only had 3 years at Central. The first year, I didn't consider playing. I loved playing basketball in playgrounds, but I didn't consider playing for the team. The second year, my junior year, people were telling me, man, why don't you go out for the basketball team? You can make it. And but I didn't have a lot of confidence, Kenny. Believe it or not, I didn't have a lot of confidence. Yeah. And so the day of tryouts, it was raining. And that was the only excuse I needed. Oh, it's raining, I can't go, to a tryout. So I would have made the team. Now that year they won the conference and city league, they won the ECT championship, and they won the state championship. I could have been a part of that, but I didn't go out. But my senior year, I said, you know what, I'm going to give it a try. So I went out for the team, and I made the team, and I started for the team.
Wow.
So that was the beginning.
Wow, that's beginning. Now, I kind of asked this question now. Can we just talk about the South and like that? Did your family have any roots South that you went from north back down South and back and forth, or you have a Southern influence, or were you primarily a Northern influence family?
It was Northern influence. I was born in Newark, and but my mother was born in Mississippi.
Okay.
But she was born back in the early 1900s, and she told me, she said, it was hot in Mississippi, if you know what I mean. And her parents got her out of there when she was 3 years old. So most of the family, our mother came to Newark. My uncles, they went to Philadelphia, and some other uncles went to Ohio, but they had to get out the South. I mean, it was tough on them.
Right, got you. All right, that's interesting. So, I get a little more formal. So first, I want to thank you for agreeing to do the interview. Appreciate it. I know it's busy.
My pleasure.
And hopefully this will take me to another level because you're a superstar. I always knew that when I never forget. I think it was our junior varsity championship game. I think we won. I think you were looking at it. And I think I kind of knows that you were paying attention to me a little bit. I said, well, I might have a shot at varsity. I worked really hard, and I was glad you gave me the opportunity. So, can you talk a little bit? You talked a little bit about Central. Can you talk a little more about your educational background, Montclair State? Why, if not Montclair, what? And what did you do some of those other, downtime and during your junior year of high school, that kind of stuff when you weren't playing basketball?
Actually, my sophomore and junior year in high school, I just went to high school. I like to say I was pretty much invisible. I didn't do too much. I mean, nobody knew who I was, only the people, that I was close to. I lived in the projects, the Bachelor Terrace projects. Once school was over, I usually just came, right on back home and played in that area. We were very parochial, very territorial at that time, and I actually lived in the North Ward. Okay. Then they switched it. I don't know if there was like a rezoning. They said I was then in the Central Ward. So that's why I went to Central High School. But, in the projects where I lived, there was courts. And there was, one side, there were 3 buildings on this side, 3 buildings on that side, separated by a small area. My friends that lived on this side went to Barringer, and people that lived on my side, we went to Central. So, it was really, really strange. But my first 2 years, I didn't do very much. Nobody knew who I was, except that people from Baxter Terrace, that area, they knew I could play basketball.
Okay.
Nobody else.
Were you about 6'4"?
Well, I used to be 6'3". I'm now 6'2" because I got older. But I'm about, I say 6'2".
I said, if he's 6'4", I'm 6'4". That's pretty impressive, So, you did a lot of, damage. You were kind of like small forward. You remind me like Bob Dandridge type, right? Was that kind of your style game, or you were?
Well, actually, when I played in high school, I was a center. Although I wasn't the biggest guy on the team, because we had a 6'3" point guard. At that time, a 6'3" point guard was considered to be kind of tall, and he was All-American. And here's the thing, Kenny, he was All-American. His name was Brayton Bembry. God rest his soul. He passed away a few years after graduation. But he was 6'3". He was a point guard. He was tall, he was same size I was, maybe even a little taller. He might have been 6'4".
Right.
And we had George Reynolds, who played for he played with Elvin Hayes down at the University of Houston, didn't play the year with the Houston Rockets. We had Willie Jennings, who also made All-State with Great Bembry. 2 guys from my team made first team All-State.
Wow.
And then there was Donald Parks, who was my size. So, I was one of the average size guys. I wasn't the tallest, but I wasn't the smallest. But I was the center. I was a center because they were all better ball handlers than I was. So coach said, we got to get you in there somehow, so we're going to stick you with center. So when you get the ball, all you got to do is shoot.
That's great. So how'd you get recruited to Montclair State? How'd that happen? You kind of, was it formal recruiting, or you kind of,
That's interesting because after graduation, from high school, I didn't have any place to go. I made the honorable mention All City. Nobody knew who I was. I wasn't the greatest ball handler. So the 2 All State guys, Jennings and Bembry, they were recruited for a junior college out in Kansas. It's called Fort Scott Junior College. It wasn't a military base. That's the name of the town, Fort Scott, Kansas, about 90 miles south of Kansas City. And so the coach said to the coach from Fort Scott, he said, if you want the 2 All-State players, you got to take Robert Lester. You got to take Bob Lester. So I went with them out there. That's how my college career started. So I didn't play my freshman year because of injury, but I played my sophomore year. It was after my sophomore year that I was recruited to come to Montclair State.
Okay.
That's
interesting. I don't think people know these stories. So you went to JUCO first.
Yeah, I went to junior college first. Yeah, I went to junior college.
That's interesting. So, but you're I always remember you liking literature and kind of always having literature around us and stuff. So, was that developed in high school or junior college, or when you got to Montclair State?
I've always had this love of reading. I remember once in the 8th grade, I read a book, and I borrowed it from the library and never returned it. I better have a big bill. I never returned it. But I read that book, and as I was reading that book, it was about this farm family somewhere out in the Midwest. And, I could almost see myself being in that setting. That's when I would read, I would put myself in this setting with the characters of the book. So I always had a fascination for reading. And, so that started, my love of books, reading, literature, quotes. I got so many quotes. It's amazing. I had a whole computer. Hard disk of,
you should throw a few on us. Give us a few. What's one of your favorites? What are some of your favorite quotes?
Oh gosh, let me see. What is you are who you think you are? Now, now that quote is is somewhat true, okay, depending on your spirituality, because your mind controls, and based on what I have been reading for many, many years now, your mind controls whatever you do, okay? A lot of people think, the body itself is the main part of their life. It's not. It's the mind. The mind tells the body what to do.
Right.
The body doesn't tell the mind what to do. The mind tells the body what to do. So if you think you're good, there's a good chance you can be good. You are what you think you are. If you think you're less than, there's a good possibility that you are going to be less than what you normally can be. So it's your mind. If you develop that type of mind, great. The things you have done, you became a great basketball player. You became a great student. You became actor. And this is because you felt that you could do these things. I know so many people who didn't have the confidence. Like I told you, I didn't have a lot of confidence, when I got to Central High School. But when I did start playing basketball, my confidence began to grow. So, and I try and tell this, on my Facebook page, people, you'll see a lot of quotes. I have something called a thought for today. And there's a lot of thoughts that I put out there. Mm-hmm. And one of them is, you are who you think you are. If you want to be great, you can be. When you look at the world, it might seem as if that's not totally true, but in some way it is. So what you want to be, you can be if you put your mind to it.
Well, I'm gonna take that one and run with it, because I think I got another window in me. So big high. But I study finance. We kind of build on. We say that expectations are self-fulfilling. That if you have high expectations, then your actuality will come around to that.
Right.
And so I looked up to you as a cash man. You were a calm leader. I always remember we never sweated ever. Even I remember being down 10, 15, and we kind of knew we were still in it.
Right.
So how did you kind of develop these traits? And pretty much, you alluded to some of your leadership skills that, these quotes here saying that you have a mindset of a leader. How did that come about? Because it's kind of ironic, because you're saying you were this quiet person that didn't have confidence. And so somewhere between it, there's this big transformation in you.
Yeah. Well, playing basketball, I learned something. When we used to go to the gyms and the playground, some of the players were better than others. And there were a lot of times we would go, and the star player on the other team, nobody would want to play him, They would shy away from it.
Right.
I was always, okay, I'll take him. If you don't want to play him, I'll take him, and I would play the star player. And you had to be at your best in order to play the best. So, that's where basketball helped me. That part of my confidence came from basketball. It didn't come from being the most popular student. It didn't come from, many other areas. It came from having that confidence in basketball. And that's when I began to realize, and I sat down and said to myself, what? Basketball can do more for me than just, have me be able to put the ball in the basket. It gave me confidence. And so that confidence you saw in me, it came from playing basketball.
Gotcha. Well, so let me dig a little deeper. So, let's take you back to high school. When you didn't play basketball, did you participate in any clubs? Was anything there, or did you work after school, or was just homework home? Did mom have some chores for you?
Always some chores. My mother, she, that time period, the 50s, early 60s, mid 60s. It was difficult. But my mother only went to the 6th grade. Okay. And so she couldn't do a lot of help academically with me, but she did instill values within me, so she always had something for me to do. And so I did work. I worked once at a job. This goes to senior year when I went off the team. I was working as a junior. And so I started in September. The I was still working when school started. I was working at this grocery store making $20 a week. It would help buy groceries for the family. It was tough. Believe me, it was tough. I don't like to talk about it too much, but I know what it's like to go hungry. Not because your mother said, my father died when I was 5 years old. When your mother, uh, when you have to go to bed hungry because there's no food in the house, not because of a punishment. You go to bed hungry. The thing about that is you wake up hungry.
Yeah.
You're still hungry. So, it carries on to the next day. So I've had that experience, and it made me say, you know what? I'm not going to live like this, man. Something's got to give. I didn't know.
Right.
Something's got to give. So one day I was working at the store, and I was down in the basement. The guy who owned the store told me to bring up some food from the basement of the store. So we didn't have any food at home, so I tried to stick a pound of bacon in my pants so we could have something to eat.
Yeah.
And he caught me. He fired me, And so that was a big thing. But like I said, it happened in September. I said, okay, I don't have anything to do now. The basketball season starts. I'm going to try out. And that's how I tried out. If I wouldn't have been caught, I might have continued working in that grocery store and never played for the team, and maybe wouldn't have been where I am now.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, keep that in the back of your mind. I want to come back to that time period you talked about, 1950s and 60s, because one of the reasons for this, project interviews is kind of trying to write a book on the 60s, 70s, because it's a time period called Black Camelot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of a period of Black growth in a lot of areas. And so you have some insight in terms of what happened during that time period of, clearly the 50s and 60s were different than the 60s, 70s, and 80s. So maybe we come back to that as we kind of put that in context. And then you have the privilege of talking about that in terms of, Black Lives Matter. So you kind of have a continuum. So make sure I get back to that with you. But I want to get into the basketball stuff because I know folks, they want to know. You were the genius behind the whole system, and it kind of started with you, this whole East Orange renaissance of basketball. So you had this fantastic coaching career. So looking back over your coaching career, can you talk about what are some of those highlights, lowlights, coulda, wouldas, and that kind of stuff?
Well, it's very interesting because one thing I want to add in here is that East Orange, they had great players before I got there. They had won a state championship with Greg James. I know you heard of that name.
Yeah.
Greg James is a star at East Orange High School. And they won a state championship in, I believe it was 67 or 68, when they beat Brian Taylor of Perth Amboy in the state championship. And then the next year, 69, they were good, but they didn't do too much. 70, 71, they were also in the state finals. They played Camden Wilson, and I went to that game because I was working at East Orange High at that time. Mm-hmm. Camden Wilson, they beat East Orange, but they were in the state finals. Now, here's a little bit of trivia. The coach of Camden Wilson, I'm asking you to see where you're at right now. Their coach, the high school coach of Kenneth Daniels, later went to a major college, and he won a national championship. Do you have any idea who he might have been?
Oh, it wouldn't be the coach in 71?
The coach in 71 from Camden Wilson High School. Right. That beat East Orange to the state championship. That led to him getting offers. He began to coach. He coached another school, and later on, they won an NCAA championship.
I'm gonna plead the ignorance on that one, Coach. I know, cause all I know is the Wagners, and
yeah,
act like I'm smart, I'm not.
Yeah, he went to. He eventually wound up at the University of Maryland, and Maryland won the NCAA championship. It was in the 90s. He was the coach at Camden Wilson at the time. And that was Gary. Gary Lewis was his name. He was the coach of Maryland, but he was a coach in high school when they beat East Orange in the state championship in '71. And I became the head coach in '71, '72. Here's something very interesting. The coach that had led East Orange to a state championship in '67 and '68, who had led East Orange to the finals in '71, Frank Milner, fired him. They fired him because they wanted a black coach.
Oh, wow.
But he was, you can see, he was good. I mean, he had been winning games, but they wanted more. It was a community effort. Okay, it wasn't the Board of Education.
Right.
It was the community, and so they gave me a chance, and I became the coach in 1971, and we went on to win a championship my first year at East Orange.
So let me ask you, so put in that context, you came into a little pressure cooker. It wasn't actually it wasn't like a sweetheart job.
No. No. I had to win, because how could they justify hiring me to replace somebody who had taken them to 2 state finals and won one of them? Okay, and how could they justify me being replacing them? So I had to win. I had to win. The best thing about it was that, like I said, East Orange had good players, and so it made it a little bit easier for me. But yeah, it was a pressure cooker, believe me.
Yeah. Well, let me break it down to a little parochial. Let me test your knowledge now of East Orange. So, as you know, East Orange is broken down by parks. Washington Park, Elmwood Park, Oval. So did you know where the players came from? For example, my park, which was Washington Park, had Tommy Bowen, Big Mike, Ron Harris, Copeland, Otterbridge, Fisher. We used to
Fisher, yeah.
I used to Fisher. I used to terrorize him. He never got that crooked jump shot off on me. And then Tony Martin. So did you kind of know now, like, certain players came from certain parks and there was rivalries and stuff? Did you get that detail? Or you just kind of took it as it came to you?
I took it as it came to me. I knew they were from certain parks, and the 2 biggest parks were at the time were Elmwood, and the Oval.
Yeah.
Now, I realized, and everybody else did too, that Washington Park had some pretty, pretty good players too, But the parks that everybody talked about was the Oval and Elmwood. So, but I knew where everybody was from, but we had to bring all that talent from different parks together, because we were one team. We weren't separate teams.
Right.
Or one team. Surprisingly, I mean, there may have been some friction there. I know you have to tell me, between guys who came from up the way or down the way of this park or whatever, But I didn't see too much of it. I just saw guys who really were hungry and wanted to play.
There's a little story. I'm gonna get to that. Of course, it was a little friction. So we'll get to that. I have a specific question. You'll be able to answer it for me, because I went to the source. He told me no, but I want to get you the other source. But it's interesting because Mac talked about that up the way, and he talked about it in a cultural sense, that Oval was this cultural place, that it was Negro baseball, it was basketball, and in some way, like I was talking to somebody the other day about Althea Gibson, and then she was a resident of East Orange and came from New York, so there was a lot of culture and excellence around us. And so you're kind of alluding to the fact that at that time period, East Orange wasn't a slum. It was a middle-class Black community that had expectations.
Right.
And they put you as the face of it. Because at that time, you're in the paper, and that's a big deal at that time period for a Black man in the paper and talking, saying, this is the town. And so how'd you kind of handle that, being the face of things, and kind of,
It wasn't always easy. Because East Orange being well, predominantly black town by the time we got there. Although, when I first started East Orange, there were a few white players there. One of the best players that played football, Ron Manziel. I don't know if you remember that name. He was a football player, only white guy on the team. There were others. We in the 6 years I coached there, and in the 8 years that I taught there, East Orange basketball team never had a white player.
Wow.
Never had a white player. They were white, like I said, they were white students in school.
Yeah.
So, a lot of places, we went to places like Livingston and Bloomfield and Glen Ridge, and even to a degree Montclair. East Orange is looked upon as a black school that was a step above Newark, but not like Livingston, not like Montclair. And I'm saying to myself, oh, yes, they are.
Right.
Yes, they are. Like, you've got these guys wrong, you know. So it was a lot of pressure because it seemed like you were carrying the mantle or the backpack on your back that was, one of blackness.
Right.
They had to prove that blackness was just as good as anything else. Because if we would have lost, Kenny, can you imagine what people would have said? Oh, they took away the white coach and put in the black coach, and he couldn't do the job. So, it would go into those racial stereotypes, about superiority and all that BS. And so we had to win. And that's why I'm so thankful to you guys. Not only were you guys winners, you guys conducted yourselves wonderfully. You know what? My 6 years of coaching, I don't remember a player ever getting a technical foul. I got a lot of technical fouls, but the players did not. So you guys, they could talk about me, but they couldn't talk about you guys because you conducted yourselves well.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that we weren't dirty at all. We didn't.
No. They were expecting, some places were expecting it. Uh-oh, here comes the guys to be Orange. No, we came in, acted like gentlemen, played well, and we left like gentlemen, with our heads up high and represented our school well.
Yeah, well, I said back in that day, speed kills. That was interesting, though.
We had a lot of speed, too.
Yeah. Well, so you might have been there. I've been told there's one event of East Orange during this time period. You may have been there, I've heard of it, is that I guess it was during the 60s that East Orange had a significant white population. And I guess there was a pool in East Orange. And for some reason, there was an unwritten rule that blacks weren't supposed to be in the pool or something. And somebody jumped in the pool and there was a controversy. And then they closed the pool down, they cemented it. And then they shipped all the white students to Scott. And they left, East Orange became more black because of that. Were you there during that time? Can you illustrate or allude to any of that?
Actually, that pool incident, or the pool situation, I should say, happened in the 30s, it was the 30s, because I have an article that I posted on Facebook about the person who actually broke that color barrier where they felt that blacks couldn't swim at the same time as white. He eventually became a judge. And I'm trying to think of his name. Of course, my memory is shot. 74 years old. My memory's not as good as it used to be.
Told me his name. I got to find this guy,
Yeah, I got the article. I'll give you his name. Yeah. He actually became a judge. He was originally from Newark. He went to Barrington High School, but he transferred to East Orange High School. And he was wondering, how come I can't swim in that pool? Well, what happened is blacks could only swim in the pool at certain times. And the whites would go maybe on the weekends or whatever, but I don't remember the exact times. But what they would do after the whites got out of the pool, they would drain the pool, put new water in, and then let the black people come in. They didn't even want blacks and whites to be in the same water at the same time.
Oh my God.
But eventually, and this person I'm talking about Robert Carter, that's his name, Robert Carter, Judge Robert Carter. He did some great things. So I'm going to give you information on him because he actually had something to do with the NBA breaking the free agency situation that allowed players. Now you can see multi-million-dollar contracts they're signing. This all began with Judge Carter ruling that this was something they could do. So very interesting. But anyway, after Robert Carter decided that he was going to go in that pool with the right people, that's when they decided, we're going to cement that pool in. It's not going to happen. We're not going to have white people and black people swimming at the same time. So they cemented that pool in, and that's the story of the East Orange pool. They didn't want blacks and whites swimming together. So rather than saying it's okay, they cemented the whole thing in, and nobody can swim.
That's an amazing story. I've heard that. So you're giving some validity to it. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
We have to get to Mr. Carter and get his side of it, and what impact that had on him. That's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Could you imagine being a young man and you're kind of seeing that kind of controversy? Kind of probably impacts you very powerfully. So
17 years old.
Yeah. Wow.
He said, "I'm not going to take it anymore."
Yeah, I think we all get there at one point.
Yeah.
Took me, I probably got there when I was in my 20s and 30s, but I got there. But so let's get into I guess the year 1977. I kind of know that year. Cause I know people want to hear about Dabney and Booker and Clay, but I want to talk about. I think I have some other let's go there first, because so you coach Booker, Eugene, Bradshaw, Dabney. And along those lines, before then, there was Harry James. You talked about Greg James, Kenny Young. I think people forget about Kenny Young. I don't know if you coached him or not.
Oh, I coached Kenny Young. Yes, he was on the second team I ever coached at East Orange High School. Yeah.
Wow. So can you talk a little bit about maybe the first tier, but also fill it in terms of the second tier player that people might not know about, that they might want to hear what you think about.
Well, that first team, like I said, I became coach in '71. For the 71-72 season. And what made it so good was that I inherited an All-American. Mike Dabney was an All-American.
Right.
So that really did help. He bailed me out a number of times. I'll never forget, we were playing Bloomfield with George Seller, the great George Seller. He was read up on the history of George Seller. He was a great coach. I had a state record, modern record of, I think, 50 or 67 games in a row he won back in the 50s. Anyway, we were playing at East Orange, and I think it was like my 34th game, and I was coaching my butt off. Do this and do that and do this. And after, like 4 minutes to go, we were still losing. So I came up with a great idea as a coach. And here it is. I said, "Give the ball to Mike Dabney and everybody else is clear out."
Get the ball to Dick.
And we came back and won that game because of Mike Dabney. And at the end of the game, everybody's coming over to me to shake my hand. "Great game, coach." I said, "Look, you better go see that guy, Mike Dabney, because he won that game, not me." He won that game. But on that team, there were two people that, whose names you mentioned, Tommy Bowen and Tony Martin. Tony Martin was a starter. Yeah. Tommy Bowen had started the year before, but I saw somebody better, Jimmy Saunders. There's a name, I don't know if people remember. Jimmy Saunders was starting point guard on that first state championship team. Mike Dabney was a star. And here's an unsung hero. Talk about second-tier player. Toughest player I ever coached was a guy by the name of Booker Council.
Booker Council, yeah, I know that name, yeah.
Yes. Booker was somebody, there were games, he was about 6 feet tall. And he would go in and come out with 12, 14, 16 rebounds a game. He didn't mind Dabney, shooting. Yeah. He didn't mind Saunders shooting. Tony Martin was a great player. He was like a glue, man. They held us together. He could handle the ball. He could shoot. But he never had a huge, attitude, big head. Yeah. And he was so much a part of us winning. And then we also had Ray Smith, Leaping Ray Smith, as they call him. You know, he's down here in Georgia now. But the star of that team was Mike Dabney, but some unsung heroes, Booker Council, toughest player I ever coached, Jimmy Saunders, Tony Martin. They were guys whose names people don't remember, but they were the ones that started all the Bob Lester era, which lasted 6 years as coach. They were the ones that started it first.
Wow, you had some great characters there. They were good guys too.
Yeah.
I looked up to Tommy Bone and Tony Martin because they're Washington Park guys. We couldn't play on the big court because they made us play on the garbage cans back then. And, you know, so transition me into the Kim Fisher years, because I think I saw pictures of Fisher and Dabney together.
Kim Fisher was a junior on that first team I coached in 71, 72. He wasn't a starter, but he played a lot. But like I said, you know, we had a five that could really play, but Kim was good.
Right.
But the next year, my second year, Kim was a starter. Starting five, because we had lost everybody except Leaping Ray Smith from that starting team.
Yeah.
So we finished 25-2, won the Group 3 state championship, lost in the final of ECT championship. Although we got them back in the state tournament, we cremated them. Well, we beat them, okay? With the great Luke Bensley.
They had big yeah.
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 But so we had lost 4 of 5 starters, and everybody was saying, "Oh, what is East Orange going to do now?" But Ken Fisher came in, stepped up. Reggie Baker came in. Kenny Young came in. Okay, these became starters. Ray Smith, and I'm trying to think who the fourth starter. It might have been Mike Booker. It might have been Mike Booker sophomore year. I'm not sure. I have to look at the books, but Kim Fisher came in, and man, he just stepped right in and became, you know, a very solid ball player. Ray Smith was a veteran. Reggie Baker and Kenny Young. Woo! Did he run that club?
Yeah.
Kenny Young was.
We'll talk about Ken Young. We'll talk about so was that Ken Young the junior then?
Kenny was a junior. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And he ran that club like, you know, he made it easier for me because he was running the club. I would defer to Kenny. I would every time we would shoot a free throw, Kenny Young would come over the bench and say, "Coach, what do you want to happen?" I would tell Kenny what to do, and he would run everything.
That's amazing. Yeah.
He was
a smart guy too. He was really
man, he was a brilliant tactician, and he was.
So let me ask you. So Ken Young he went to Duke.
Yes.
So did you get involved in anything? Did Duke give you some feelers that say, hey, what kind of guy is he? Did any of the recruiters come in? How did you interact with recruiters back then in terms of, you know, asking questions about Ken Young or Fisher or any of the talents?
I don't know if it was, you know, they didn't ask me a lot of questions about Kenny Young. It was almost as if they tried to bypass me as a coach. Maybe they, you know, that mindset, you know, but they knew about Kenny. They knew Kenny was what they wanted, who they wanted.
Yeah.
And so they didn't contact me. Fortunately, Kenny had grades to get into a Duke. He had a talent. Yeah. The problem Kenny had at Duke, he started his freshman year. There was a guy by the name of Tate. I can't think of Tate's last name. He was hurt that first year. He came back next year, and they wanted to give him Kenny's job. Right. And Kenny said, "No, I started my freshman year. You know, why are you taking my job away from me?" And once again, it was that, you know, who you think you are type situation. They thought this guy was better. And he was good now. He was pretty good.
Tate Armstrong.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go, Tate Armstrong.
Yeah.
And he came in and he became the starter, and Kenny just decided he didn't want to stay at Duke anymore. But
Yeah, that's not tough
and he
stuff.
was brilliant.
Because I kind of knew the Kenny. I never knew he went to Duke. Kind of shows you that we kind of knew he was good, but he went there and then you look at the stats and he, like you said, he played well, and just never know if people had maybe been to better situation, what could have happened. Could have been a pro. So
yeah.
But, so kind of building on that. So tell me about Clee Eugene, because now. Because he's like a brother to myself and Joe. So, but could talk about him when he tried out. What did you see? Because it's pretty amazing what he accomplished in a 6'3" body. And I don't even know if he was 6'3".
Hey, I was going to ask you the question. Hey, how tall do you think Cleveland was? He wasn't 6'3".
He was 6'1", I think.
He was shorter than I was, and he played inside, and he was unstoppable. There was only one other player that I had that was about that size that could play inside like him, and that was when I coached. I left East Orange. I went to Atlantic City, and we had a player down there. His name was Eric Moore. He was about the same size as Cleveland, but he was an inside player. Cleveland, I don't know if this is the same way off the court. On the court, he was quiet. Okay, he was like, "Give me the ball and let me do my thing."
Right.
And never had any problems out of him. He was excellent moves around the basket, a good free throw shooter, did everything you wanted him to do. But I understand Cleveland had some issues, some family issues. I don't know if you know about them.
No, I don't.
Because I don't know exactly what happened. I just know about what I heard.
Yeah.
About him, but Cleveland
he had a great career. But there's a story of Clee when he was, as you know, Mr. Miles ran the AAU and that kind of stuff, and I guess they went out to Michigan to play against Glenn Hubbard was big back then, and some other All-Americans from Michigan, and like the best players in the country there. And they said Clee dominated the whole tournament. It's like. They're like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
All these big names. And when they came out, everybody wanted to know who was Cleveland Eugene. It's like, so it's just an incredible story. And then I know you remember Spud.
Yeah.
Spud said that Clee got his strength because he used to shovel all the snow on the street. He said he was the strongest guy that when it snowed, that was like Clee's way to make money, and that's where he got his strength from.
Okay.
So you hear these little stories, just makes you laugh, But he was a great guy, funny. And,
can I tell one story about Cleveland? I think this was his senior year. He was, of course, Mike Booker. By that time, Reggie Baker and Kenny Young had graduated, and now the team belonged to Mike Booker, Cleveland, and Rodney Williams came on in there, as well as some others. But anyway, toward the end of the regular season, Cleveland got a hernia.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so doctors told me, they said, he's finished for the rest of the year.
Wow.
I went to the hospital to visit Cleveland, and this is the end of the season, getting ready to go into the county tournament. And I said, Cleveland, thanks for everything you did, but your season's over. Cleveland said, Mr. Les, he said, I'll be back. I'll be back. I said, okay, fine, that's great. I just wanted to, keep his spirits up. Right. Guess what? He came back. The doctor said it was almost a miracle that a person could come back from a hernia operation and play in less than 3 weeks. But Cleveland came back and played and led us to the ECT championship, and it was just amazing. I still don't know today how he was able to come back in such a short period of time, but in his mind, he believed he was going to be back, and he came back. Yeah. The doctors said he was finished for the season.
Yeah, I think that was the game you guys went up against Edgar Jones.
Woo! Yes, yes, yes. That was something.
Ooh.
No, Kelly Trifuca. If you ask me who is the best player we ever faced
Yeah.
over a course of 3 years, it was Kelly Trifuca. And I want to say one more thing. I hope I don't forget it. That year you had to guard Kelly because I was looking at the scorebook. Um, but you know, but if you ask me which player had the best individual game of anybody I ever coached against, it was Edgar Jones. Edgar Jones in that ECT tournament had 26 points. I know his stats: 26 points, 28 rebounds, and 12 block shots.
Yes.
He caught one of Ron Harris's shots in mid-air and started a fast break going the other way. Everybody on our team was there. How did he get up that high?
I'm glad,
It
I'm
was
glad you
amazing.
mentioned his name, not me, so I can rub it in when I see my buddy. I love Ron. Oh,
Yes. But here's the thing. Now, Barrett was playing a great game against us, and so I said, "How in the world?" Because we couldn't go inside. Edgar was there.
Right.
We had to shoot from the outside, or 15-foot jump shots.
Yeah.
So I came up with an idea. I said, "We're going to do this." I said, I forgot who Edgar was guarding. I said, "We're going to go with a box and one offense. Everybody, 2 forwards go to the corners, 2 guards to the outside, put Cleveland in the middle."
Yeah.
Coach from Barringer, he took Edgar out the middle and put him on the guy in the corner. And Cleveland ate whoever played him alive. He could not guard Cleveland one-on-one. Cleveland just ate that boy alive.
Yeah.
But my question, and I never said anything, well, I did say something, not to the other coach. Why did you take Edgar out the middle? We couldn't do anything with Edgar in the middle.
Right.
He did put Edgar in the corner. That opened it up for Cleveland. Game over.
Rest was history. Yeah. That was amazing. So you mentioned, I'm gonna go into it. So we had a pretty good year in 1977, and we're playing Kelly and those guys in the ECT, and Kelly's killing Pittsford. So what made you think? I remember you coming to the bench. Said, "All right, I kind of know who's going to stick Kelly there." And you kind of mentioned, "Okay, Ken, you got Kelly." What made you think? What made you think about that? And how did I do? I don't remember how did I fare. We won the game. So But tell me what your thoughts are.
I was looking at the scorebook. You held him 40 points.
How many points?
40.
40. Yeah, I thought so. Okay. I knew it was something like, I thought it was 30, 39.
So he scored 40 points that year in 3 games because they beat us twice during the regular season.
They beat us, yeah.
Yeah. And so we got him in the finals of the ECT. Those 3 games, Kelly averaged 44 points.
Oh, yeah, he was unbelievable.
Average 44 points.
Yeah.
But the reason why, because I had, as juniors and seniors, I had tried different players on Kelly. Nobody could stop him. And I said, you know what? I had a lot of confidence in him.
Okay.
I don't think you realize how much confidence I had.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I said, Kenny, do this, you wouldn't say, Mr. Lester, why?
Mm-hmm.
You would go out there and do it.
Yeah.
Perfect for what I wanted, somebody who would let me lead and him do. So I said, Kenny, you're going to go on Kelly. You went out there and did the best job you possibly could on Kelly. And you made him work for everything he got. And you see, that tires him out.
Right.
Because it wasn't like he could just get the ball.
Right.
When he got the ball, he had to get around you. You made him work. You gave up height to him. You gave up weight to him. And he was so talented. But he had to work for everything he got. So, this is one game that people don't realize this. just how much you made him work for everything, that freed up the other guys like Pitchford to do their thing, Clyde to do their thing, you
Right.
know. So
Bro. Yeah.
it made it easier for us because you took so much and gave so much energy to making Kelly work. And you were in double figures yourself that game. Okay,
I
you
scored
scored
some.
double figures yourself that game. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, I got the scorebook for every game we ever played, whether it be Montclair, East Orange, or Atlantic City. And I looked at that, said, and I didn't realize you scored in double figures that game. So not only were you playing good defense, but you played good offense. And but that's the reason why I put you on him, because I knew that you were going to give me everything you had to make Kelly shoot. And that is what we needed. Because we needed Pitchford to be a scorer, to do his thing. He couldn't, don't work too hard trying to stop Kelly.
Right.
But you did it, no complaints, and we were ECT champions.
We won ECT, yeah. Kelly missed the free throw at the end. Yeah. So let's go into like general athletics, and then I want to go into your business mind of sports. So you're seeing a lot of good athletes. I know you're going, and let's make it broad, because I'm pretty sure you can name the top 5 basketball. That'd be too easy for you. But what about, let's say Newark, East Orange, let's say Essex County. Who are the top 5 athletes you see in your opinion, regardless of era and sport?
The top 5 athletes. Now, does that include just basketball or
any sport, anything?
Top 5 athletes, and you know what? I'm kind of glad you asked me to go that way, because a lot of people asked me to name the top 5 players that I ever coached, and I never would do that, because I never would say this player is better than another player, because we were a team. Okay. Now, the only thing I did say, and I still say, the best player I ever coached at East Orange or anywhere was my dad. But that's as far as I would go. So, well, who's the other top 5? It's Kenny Young it is. I would never tell them, because I'm not going to embarrass anybody. I'm not going to make some other players seem slighted, because it was a team effort. But when you talk about the best athletes I've ever seen, of course, you got to put Kelly in there. Okay. He was great. I can go back to the late 50s and the early 60s.
Yeah.
Another great athlete, Leo Hill.
Yeah, I was going to say, Mr. Hill.
Yeah. Hill was a great athlete. Now,
what's the name out there? Robert Hurt Sr.
Okay.
Let's talk about him.
The ECT started. First ECT was in 1947.
Yeah.
I was born in 1946. So I was about 1 year old when the first ECT started. And you know who won the first ECT was Orange High School.
Really?
And the star of that team was Robert Hurt Jr. I'm sorry, Senior.
Really?
Bobby Hurt, they called him Left Hand.
Lefty, yeah.
He was a star of that first ECT team, went to Seton Hall. But so I never got to see him play. But I did play against him in the playgrounds. But he was, much older than I was. So, the game wasn't where it was back then. Yeah. But not only was he a great player, he was a great leader himself. And he led in a quiet way. Yeah. You never heard him shout. You never heard him scream. He would just say, this is the best thing for you. Let me give you this bit of advice. Whatever. But he was so calm.
Yeah. Yeah, he is a, the Montclair connection, and I think you coached Bob.
Bob Jr. His son. Yeah, I coached his son. Yeah.
Now, so we must have played against y'all in '78 then. No, that's Mr. Kidd.
Maybe. Okay. I left East Orange in '77.
Went to East
And
first.
I think 77 and 78, I was in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
Were you on that team that came to Atlantic City that year?
No.
Okay, so then it must have been the second year.
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't play against you guys. I didn't play against that team. I left. If I would have stayed at East Orange, and people asked me, why did you leave East Orange? That's another story, you know. So I won't say that. But we would have had a very good team.
Yeah.
We would have been there, and some other guys would have been there. We would have challenged for another county championship and a state championship. But there were other reasons why I left East Orange. But then it must have been the following year.
We'll come back to that if you like. So
Okay.
But let's go into your basketball mind about the state of sports today. You know, the business model, this whole streaming, and you know, everybody's on TV. You know, back in the day, you had to be selected to be on TV. Now everybody's on TV.
Yeah.
So what do you think about how this, you know, landscape of sports has changed in terms of, you know, TV opportunities? Has the game gotten better or worse? You know, kind of can't touch anybody, no hand checking kind of stuff. You know, what's your thoughts?
I think fundamentally they're not nearly as sound as they were when you played and before. Now everything is about talent. I think when especially basketball, AAU started to come get players out of high school, pay for them. These AAU coaches, not all of them, but many of them, came in and said, look, you know, we want you to play for us. You don't have to worry about hard practices like we used to have to do. Right. You know, you don't have to worry about fundamentals. You're the best player here. I just want you to come out and play ball. So they kind of put all this talent together.
Right.
But taught them very little.
Right.
I don't even watch full high school games anymore because there's an enormous amount of talent, but fundamentally it's ridiculous. I mean, it's not even fun to watch. I mean, if you like to see dunks and fantastic plays, yeah. But if you want to see set screens, pick and rolls, you know, faking your man here, or doing those little things, you don't see that too much anymore.
Right.
You know? So the play now is all about talent. You know, Don Calipari can go in and watch players and say, okay, you're so talented, come play for me. You know, 1 year, this could be 1 year. You know, I'll teach as much as I can because they're so talented. But fundamentally, they're not good at all. So I don't like the product I see in basketball now. I can't speak too much about football because I'm not as well versed in football fundamentals as I'm in basketball. Right. But it's watching high school basketball, high school sports. Like you said, everybody's on TV. You know, if you go on YouTube, you can find Pee Wee leagues, so you know, on YouTube and stuff like that. So I wonder how it affects them mentally. You know, I mean, when you come, okay, you play Pee Wee football or Pee Wee basketball. When you come into high school, you think you are all this because everybody's patting you on your back and told you were good. Right. So what does that do? Does that make it more difficult for the coach, you know, to do anything with you? So it's just not the same, if you ask me.
A lot of side effects, yeah. Okay, it's interesting. So let me go take back the question we were talking about before about the, you know, 50s, 60s, this continuing that you might have some insight into in terms of the Black community, what you see in terms of some of the positives. Clearly, there's been some positives, some of the struggles, and what do you think? What do you think about really? I want to get your viewpoint on what do you see institutional development in the Black community from the 50s, 60s, 70s? Because this is thought that when things were segregated, it might have been smaller, might have been not been as powerful, but it was definitely all ours. Then we had integration. I lost some of that. So I think you get to just my question. What do you think of some of that? You know, has integration been good for us?
It has been. It has had an effect. When you go back to the 50s and early to mid, well, maybe early to late 60s, when HBCUs, historically black colleges, were, at that greatest, because a lot of great players like Cleo Hill,
Right.
could have been a great player at any predominantly white school,
Right.
but he went to Tennessee, went to Salem, and became a star there. Now Bobby Hurt did go to Seton Hall. I don't know if he was the only black player, but he was one of the few. Most of the players that I grew up with was predominantly black schools.
Right.
Okay, and but talent was greater, the camaraderie was greater, and you have some of those guys today. They're in their 70s and some in their 80s. They will speak so highly of. That's somebody on the phone. Don't worry about it. They speak about that togetherness, but they don't have that, in these big schools now. Some just go for 1 year or a couple of years. Some go to these big schools and don't stay too long for whatever reason. But when you were down south, let's say you went to Salem or you went to Tennessee State, it was like a family affair.
Right.
Okay, they knew you were from the north. You would go down to these HBCUs. Back then we called them black schools rather than HBCUs.
Yeah.
But they would tell me about on weekends they would bring you over to their house. The women would bring you, girls would bring you over to their house. The guys would bring you over to their house. You eat with their families and what have you. It was a family affair because, like I said, the integration thing wasn't as expanded as it is now, or even destroyed in some cases. So that camaraderie, it was like a family affair of black athletes going to these predominantly black schools.
Right.
It's there somewhat now, but white schools are now, of course, opening up more and more, so you don't find the quality of players at predominantly black schools used to in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
It has had an effect, yes.
So, Ken Mack talked about that in terms, he was like one of the first black athletes recruited to Florida State to actually graduate.
Yeah.
And then he expounded on that, and I just want to get your take on it because you were an educator at that time. He said that, it really went a little bit further than that, a lot of guidance counselors at that time, they were guiding black students to particular institutions because there was a particular path or, thought process that, you're black, you should go here, or your skill levels here, blacks can't do that. There was more of that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. So what do you think about that? Was that kind of, was steering that prevalent?
Oh, yeah. You, one of the things is that you didn't have that many black guidance counselors.
Okay.
And those guidance counselors, they did an awful lot of steering, to particular schools. I remember when I went to ninth grade, I was going into civics, and I had a black counselor. She said, "Why are you going into civics?" I said, "Eighth grade, I did well in civics, so I continue." She said, "No, you're going to take college prep." Okay, he got me into college prep. So she got me into a situation where, even though I had no idea that I was going to go to college, but certainly the money wasn't there for me to go, I was prepared to go to college because I had taken college prep. But I was steered, I was guided that way.
Right.
A lot of counselors, they guided certain people in certain areas, certain schools, certain courses, in certain programs. It was hurtful to a lot of athletes, especially black athletes.
Yeah, that's interesting. Some residual of that today in terms of the college level. Kind of, you see some of that. You heard about North Carolina. The football players were guided to easier sociology classes, and so still some remnants.
Yeah, they wanted them for their talent because their talent could make them money and make the school money. And NCAA now is just one big money ball. And a lot of you talk about don't pay the athletes. Okay, that might be something, but guess who brings in all that money? The athletes, they don't come to see John Calipari play. They come to see those athletes play.
Right. So you would be for paying athletes? You come down to paying them?
Yeah. I find some way to do it. There's a way you can find that will be fair and equitable. I understand that most of your revenue is from football and basketball.
Yeah.
But you can find a way that there is some sort of compensation. Put your minds to it. There's so many people that are totally against it. It's changing, and it's going to change in a few years. Yeah, they're going to start paying athletes somehow. Give them some of that money. They're making billions.
Yeah.
Billions of dollars.
I think it's going to happen too. So you kind of seen this Black Lives Matter movement. You know, you've seen the election of Obama as Black president. You know, I think, you know, you and I probably, you know, we probably never thought we would see those kind of things. And some things. Right. So there's been some acceleration on the, you know, racial progress to a certain extent. So, you know, some coalitions being built. So what you see that you like Black Lives Matters? What do you see that, you know, you might be troubled by? Got any input or insights on what's going on?
Well, you know, in 2019, 2020, probably moving into this year, we have to have a movement called Black Lives Matter. Come on. Black Lives mattered many, many years ago. Now here, we still have to go through this garbage? You know what the people before me, Kenny, had to go through? You know what people of my generation had to go through? You can cite examples from your generation, what you guys had to go through, and still we're talking about, you know, Black Lives Matter. You got to make people aware of this. They could have taken care of this many years ago. Yeah. But their mindsets were such that they were afraid. And that's what it is, a lot of fear. Right. Why would you be afraid of somebody having equal rights, something that you want for yourself? Why would you not want everybody else to have it? It's not going to be, you're not going to lose. There's something, Kenny, this is you know, goes back to my reading, that many people believe that when you gain, someone loses. Right. And when someone loses, you have a chance to gain. They don't want to look at a better philosophy, one that if you gain, I gain. Right. You lose, I lose. So I'm going to be for you, whether you are male or female, Black or white, or any of the other categories they place people into. Let's talk about gain, because if I gain, you gain, is there a loser? No, there is no loser. Right. There is no loser. But the fear of losing has crippled so many minds, and so many of those minds are in influential places. Can you imagine going in for a job, sitting down with the personnel director who's racist? I mean, you're not going to have a very good chance of getting that job, okay? Because he's going to put somebody who might be less qualified than you, not because of what you bring to the table, but because of who they see.
Interesting, yeah. Doesn't have to be zero sum. So let me unshackle you, because clearly you've had this great basketball career, and you know you kind of parlayed that into, you know, successful, you know, lifestyle and so forth. And I don't know if you want to touch on it, but you know, so they had to lure you out of East Orange to Atlantic City. There had to be some carrot, and I'm sure at the time it was the lure of Atlantic City being a growing metropolis and maybe a little bit more progressive. Now, I don't know if you want to get into the weeds on it, but let me pose the question a different way. If you weren't a basketball coach at East Orange, and you kind of, you know, you had this great mind for literature and reading stuff like that, you know, what kind of career will you have taken, and where do you think that path would have taken you?
Well, first of all, it was, I chose to leave East Orange. I wasn't recruited by anybody to leave East Orange. Once they heard that I was going to leave, then they came to me and said, you know, would you come our way? So
Right.
I chose to leave East Orange. But if I wasn't a basketball coach, I probably, I wasn't a business type person, but I was a philosophical person. So I might have went and got more letters behind my name so that I could become a college professor.
Oh,
And I might have gone to a black school, HBCU, because there you have minds that said, okay, there's something that he could bring to me and I could, bring myself up rather than going into a predominantly white situation where they would question your credentials.
right.
Oh, you got this because of affirmative action and all that BS, Um, so,
I can
but
see that.
I really like using my mind. I might have gone to be a higher education.
Yeah. So did you ever think about the? I'm sure the college coaching had to be tempting at that time. It must have been like you mentioned, I was talking to somebody. Cleo Hill actually, I heard, started in the East Orange school system as I think a physical ed teacher,
Mhm.
and he kind of worked his way from that to Essex County and so forth. Um, did you ever think about doing the college coaching at all, or what were the opportunities at that time? Because now it seems like it's a formal profession. Was it formalized as a profession back then, or was it kind of informal?
Well, my my first coaching job when I graduated from Montclair High School next season, I became assistant coach. My salary was $350.
Really? Wow.
That was before taxes, and so it didn't even pay for the gas and everything I had to spend. I went coaching, recruiting. I used to have to go to New York and places like that to recruit. So $350 wasn't anything. I So when I started coaching at East Orange, my salary was like $600.
Wow. See, people
You
don't
know,
know. That's interesting.
I, so
You didn't do it for the money.
didn't do it for the money.
Right.
No, did not do it for the money. Um, but here's another thing. There were two situations. After my third year at East Orange High School, we had won 3 straight state championships. I got a call from somebody I knew and said, they're looking for somebody to be the head basketball coach at Morgan State. They're going to fire the head coach there, and you've been so successful. We want you to go down and interview for the job. So I did go down to Morgan State in Baltimore, interview for the job, and uh, name slips my mind right now, but he was a very influential guy. Um, uh, Bob, we like you. We want you to be the coach.
Hmm.
Morgan State. So I had that. That was going to be it for me at East Orange after 3 years. I was going to Morgan State as a full-time coach. But the coach then, I forget his name, uh, he sued the school. He sued Morgan State
Wow.
because he felt that he was being fired for reasons that weren't, legitimate. And he won the case.
Oh my
But
goodness.
they had a player at Montclair State. You may have, I'm sorry, at Morgan State. It was Marvin Webster.
Oh yeah.
I would have coached Marvin Webster in his senior year if I had gotten that job. But unfortunately, because of the lawsuit, I did not get a chance to coach Morgan State.
Well, that's a
That
nice.
was after my third year. After my fourth year at Montclair State, after the 76 season. The coach at Rutgers, Tom Young, who had taken Rutgers to the Final Four,
Yeah.
he called me and said, I would like for you to come to be my assistant
Okay.
because we feel you can recruit and do what. By that time, we had built this great thing at East Orange High School. I didn't want to be an assistant coach. You know, going from, all the success, all of these athletes like yourself, I said, I originally said yes, and then after I thought about it, I said, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I turned that job down. But there were two overtures of being the head coach. One, because of lawsuit, I couldn't get. One, I made a decision. After I had accepted the job, I said no.
Wow. Well, thank you for those tidbits. That's really interesting because that had to be challenging at the time, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, because like you're saying that you didn't do it for the money, and you had to, you got a family, provide the whole 9 yards, right? So
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
you had to go along into it. You know?
I only coached 18 years before I got sick, before I had a stroke. My salary, after 18 years of coaching, my salary as a basketball coach, not teaching. Teaching was something separate.
Yeah.
My salary, the most I ever made as a basketball coach, was $4,000.
Wow, that's incredible.
$4,000 is the most I ever made.
We definitely got
that was contractual. I mean, I couldn't go in and say, okay, I want to negotiate my salary. No, that was contractual.
Different era, Well, I noticed that you got inducted into the East Orange Hall of Fame. I was there, so kind of coming on our hour. Maybe you can talk about that award and some other awards. What does that mean to you? In your mindset of your achievements and stuff. How was that night for you?
That was the last Hall of Fame induction for me. That was actually my 5th Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Because remember that junior college I told you about, Fort Scott?
Yeah.
I was inducted into their Hall of Fame.
Okay.
Now, even before that, let me give you a timeline. I was inducted into, and I'm very proud of this because it's probably one of the 2 Hall of Fames I was in. No, actually, my induction to Montclair State's Hall of Fame was because of my play. Yeah, I could play a little bit, but most people remember me as a coach and not a player. When I was inducted in '81, I was inducted to the Montclair State Hall of Fame as a player. In 2003, I was inducted into the Newark Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not as a player because I only played 1 year in high school, but they inducted me into the Newark Hall of Fame because of my coaching.
Right.
In 2005, I was inducted into the Fort Scott Hall of Fame. They didn't induct me because of my playing because I only played 1 year. So, but they had heard, even out in Kansas, they had heard about Bob Weston, the coach, so they wanted me to be in the Hall of Fame. In 2010, I was inducted into the NJSIAA Hall of Fame.
Oh, that's the big one, yeah.
Again, not because of my playing, but because of my coaching.
Yeah.
And in 2018, no, 2019, whatever, I was inducted to the East Orange Hall of Fame by coaching. But that probably was one of the proudest moments that I've had because I had this connection with the East Orange like this. Not only did I teach in East Orange for 8 years, coach in East Orange for 6 years, I lived in East Orange for over 20 years. I don't know if people realize that. No. I left Newark. I came to East Orange. When I went to Atlantic City, stayed there 2 years. When I came back, I came to East Orange. So I lived in East Orange for 20 years.
What street did you live on?
When I came to East Orange, I got married in '71. We lived on Newfield Street.
Newfield, yeah,
Yeah, which was at the end of our block was Newfield. Okay?
Yeah.
And then when we went to Atlantic City, we came back, we temporarily moved into a place on 22nd. So, I lived on Newfield Street and 22nd.
Wow, that's beautiful. Yeah, those are still good neighborhoods over there. East Orange has some great housing.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful, large. I mean, in some of it historic, the presidential district.
Oh yeah.
And then I could talk to you for another hour, but I can't. One question I think people might want to, I can't overlook this East Orange Scott rivalry or a little bit. What's your viewpoint on that? As kind of get up on an hour, but I got to ask this. What's your viewpoint on, and I didn't get to the whole Orange and Mr. Blake. I'm sure y'all probably had some interesting conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
He's
actually,
a great man. He's a good man too. I knew Mr.
Cliff
Cook.
was a great man, you know, and he should have, he didn't get the credit he deserved. He was a
Yeah,
great coach. I
yeah,
mean, some our toughest games were against, some of our toughest games were against Orange.
yeah.
But the Clifford Scott East Orange rivalry in basketball, we toasted Clifford Scott every time we played them. I mean, they weren't at the level at that time where they could challenge us.
Okay.
They could. So that really wasn't a rivalry. The only thing is they could say they were the other school, East Orange, but they couldn't challenge East
Okay.
Orange. The greatest rivalry we had was Orange. And you know how people used to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to buy tickets to watch the East Orange game,
Oh yeah.
because that was the real rivalry.
That was it.
And you know, Bloomfield was a rivalry, but the biggest rivalry was Orange, East Orange. But Clifford Scott and East Orange, nah, it wasn't a rivalry.
Let me see if I get the song. See if you can tell me a little about what the song means to you. See if I can play it up for you. See if you can hear this. Come on, I don't know. I don't know if you can hear that.
The Express. Here comes the Express. Here's another, boy, I got a lot of stories, but here's another story.
All right,
Here's another story.
Where'd that come from? Because I tell you, that song used to get me so pumped. I thought I was like a gazelle.
BT Express.
Yeah.
Here comes the Express. And, you know, I saw how it fired you guys up, and it used to get me fired up. Yeah. So when I left East Orange and went to Atlantic City, I used that as a song we came out to, 2 reasons. One, of course, it got him fired up. But I mean, how appropriate, how fitting is it that here comes the Express, and you've got one of the biggest roads leading into Atlantic City called the Atlantic City Expressway. I mean, so it, you know, here comes the Express, and so I thought that would be a good fit, you know. So that's the song for 2 years. That's the song we came out to in Atlantic City. Here comes the Express. Yeah. Because the Expressway would bring you right into Atlantic City.
That's beautiful, yeah. Well, Coach, we're coming up on our hours, almost more than that. I mean, like I said, I want to thank you. You've been a wealth of knowledge here and different views. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I know a lot of folks will say we love you, because I know, just the love. And I saw one of your reunion pictures with some of the guys, I think, that came and saw you down south. I guess you had a little picture and stuff, so I know the love is there. So I got to say, for all the guys, we love you. I know that. And so, kind of give you last word here, taking us out, what you want to say to some folks out there in terms of, I'm sure a lot of people view this. So any lasting common thoughts for you?
Well, as I told guys, especially after I stopped coaching, I tried to pass on some of the knowledge that was passed on to me. I had health issues. I said it to them. I said to you now, your turn. Spread the message. If I did anything that motivated you guys, it's always going to be there because it's in your mind. And I'm sure you've already done it. Spread the message, keep the message going. You're going to run into a lot of people who need to hear that message. Yeah. Yes, you can. Isn't that what Obama said? Yes, we can. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do anything you set your mind to. Look what you have accomplished. Look what your father accomplished. I saw he was the first, what they call Negro principal. And, we can, if given a little bit of opportunity, what we can do. Suppose we had some roads like, some other people had, the things we could do. So my thing is, keep the message going. Don't let it die. Yes, you can.
Yeah. Well, that's a great. So I'm going to take that as a positive message for my second window, my second leg here. and set some high expectations. Hopefully I'll be able to report back with some more success. So when I get my chance, my book is coming out at the end of January. And if you text me the address, I'll send you one.
Okay.
I know you're an avid reader.
Oh, yeah, I love to read, and so I'll give you that. I also want to give you that information about
The judge, yeah.
Orange Pool.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting read, and read about what this gentleman did, not only for East Orange High School, but for some of the millionaires we see in basketball and other sports today because of what he did for free agency. He was a big time judge. He worked with not Colin Powell, but was a Supreme Court justice.
Thurgood Marshall.
Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah.
You know, so he was a big man. His name is Robert Carter.
Okay, yeah.
That's very important.
Okay, I appreciate that. And I'll try to, circle back on that one. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, but I definitely want to read your book.
Yeah.
And I also want you to know that I appreciate this. I appreciate you and what you did, your accomplishments. They're helping to build that East Orange dynasty. It only lasted for 6 years while I was there. But it was a great run. It was a magic carpet ride. And if I didn't have players like yourself who would do what I asked them to do, then it wouldn't have happened. Thank you, guys. Thank you, and thank all the other guys so much. Because without you, there would be no ball.
Well, that's very gracious of you, Cuz. But thank you again. Happy New Year's, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Take care now.
Okay, we'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.